Are the Seattle Surge done for? In their current state, yes. In their current state, this is a team that's broken. This is a team that was starting to see a little upside, right? Despite only beating the Gorillas, they still do play teams closer at the Chicago home series for the first time in the year. They managed to break into the top four. And at their own home series, all of that hope and all of that progress was taken away. Now to the point at which they are back at square one. I mean, coming into this group, coming into the Seattle home series group that they had, they definitely stood a chance to get out, right? A lot of people predicted them to make it out of this group A, as you had an improving New York, sure, but you had a less than impressive Gorillas team, one that you were 4-0 against on the season, and then a Ravens team, right, that had just made a new change, bringing in Zero, who hasn't played a lot recently, had only had a few days of practice with this team. Knowing what we did then, you'd be crazy if you didn't think Seattle had a decent shot of making it out of their groups. But the loss that they suffered to the Subliners, and later the loss that they suffered to the Gorillas, a team that, like I said, they were 4-0 against on the year, it has broken this team, and I believe has very severely hurt them for the future. Right, in the series versus New York, the Surge decided for the first time in CDL history to use a mid-game substitute, right? They brought in Enable for the respawns and later subbed in Pander for S&D. It sadly didn't work out, but I respected the attempt, right? I did, because why not, right? Pander clearly, when he was brought in for a few events, had a positive impact on this team when it came down to search and destroy. They felt Enable had better reps with them when it came down to respawns. Why not? Right? But Enable finishes with 0.62 KD in his first series back, playing solely in the respawns versus New York, and the Surge decide later to bench him ahead of the series versus LAG and bring back in Pander for the remainder, which I was honestly indifferent about, right? If you're the Surge, if you want points, sub in Pander, get an easy victory, you hope, and don't risk having Enable try to get back to his glory days. But listen, I have been on the attacking side of the Surge throughout a majority of this season, right? I talked about how I didn't like this team when they were put together. I feel like they didn't have enough slaying talent. I feel like they kind of missed that one SMG Slayer, a young SMG Slayer who could really benefit from this team. Rarely have I come to the aid of Seattle, but I will now, right? Because I believe that all possible resources have been extended by the players and by the staff. Let's look at the timeline, right? They take out Enable after a slow start to the season. They bring in Pander, who by no means was the perfect fit, right? The team knew that. The meta wasn't great for him, right? Bringing in an AR player for a team that doesn't really need an AR player doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Pander then doesn't fix the issue, as we didn't expect him to, and as he shouldn't have been held as the person responsible to fix the problem. They later try and bring back in Enable ahead of the Seattle home series. They, for the first time, like I said, in CDL history, use a mid-series substitute and bringing in Pander for S&D, allowing for Enable to play the respawns. That doesn't work either. They then put Enable on the bench for a match versus LAG, one they hoped that they could just get some quick points on, and that as well doesn't work. I now opened Twitter this morning to see that Octane is trying out an SMG. Octane, one of the greatest AR players in Call of Duty history. Sam LaRue is putting down an AR and giving it to Karma to see if that can work. I mean, are you kidding me? Right? These changes, these attempts, along with the comments made by the players throughout the weekend, showed me that they have done everything in their power to turn this around. There were comments made throughout the event from Slacked, Octane, Karma. Octane tweeted out multiple posts talking on how his mental state currently isn't clear. He's tired of people telling the team to do this and to do that. He just wants the season to be over. Slack tweeted, and I quote, "We didn't scrim for 2 weeks while trying to get a new fifth. Come to find out, it's impossible. Then we try Enable for a week because we thought, hey, it couldn't get any worse, and it got way worse. We went 6-39 in scrims leading up. Yes, the effort wasn't fully there, but we were so far behind." Karma tweeted out, and I quote, I think everyone on our team was supposed to be on different teams and we got put together. Trying our best, but we just can't get there. Everyone wants to win, but we just aren't. Sucks. Later, Karma posts on Reddit. Long story short, they tried to get a fast SMG, but they were shut down. So they have tried, right? They have made attempts at getting someone new. But this whole issue wasn't just known by the players, it was known by a majority of the community. It was known on this show as well. On April 17th, on this show, I said the Surge are running out of time. They are running out of time to perform because the expectations are starting to get to them. Earlier on in the season, on March 28th, I said this team has the most pressure coming into the online league because they weren't living up to the hype that existed previously around this core. A team that struggled in the clutch, that just couldn't get over the edge, now has the chance to do so in an online environment. This situation, I believe, was avoidable and could have been avoided, right? Now, I have seen the reports in the Overwatch League, as the ownership group of the Surge also is involved with the OWL, as they own the Vancouver Titans. They completely changed their entire team, and based on some reports, didn't have enough money to hold on to them during COVID-19. So listen, I'm not trying to act like I know the financial situation behind Seattle, because I clearly don't. However, I don't believe fixing the Surge is all that expensive, right? Do you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and grab Gunless? No, you don't, right? You don't have to do that. But what you can do is scout the amateur scene. You can hunt for young talent that matches your needs. Because not only have other teams done it, historically in Call of Duty, it actually works quite well, right? Going with young talent beyond popular belief works a very high percentage of the time. This is what I have labeled as the amateur formula. And many teams have caught on to this. Here are some stats that back up that going with amateur players is actually worth it. Last year, the CWL, over 30% of the players in the CWL were rookies. Currently, over 40% of the teams in the league have a rookie player in their starting lineup. Currently, over 50% of the current CDL starters have only been around since Infinite Warfare, aka 2017. As a matter of fact, every team that's won so far in the CDL has a player that's either a rookie or that's only been competing professionally for one season. Only 4 different teams have won so far in the CDL, right? That being Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Florida. That equals out to 21 players with the substitution of Prestini. 40% of those 21 players that have won have only been a pro since Black Ops 4. 9 out of the 12 teams in the CDL have a player on their starting lineup that's only been a pro since Black Ops 4 or earlier. Talking solely on this season, we've seen 7 rookies be signed to the CDL. Listen, teams are figuring this out, right? Dallas Empire, Shotzzy and Illy, one of the best teams in the world right now. Atlanta FaZe, 3 players that were pro rookies just a title ago. New York with Mac Meltz, Florida trying it out with Awakening. The Ravens tried to get nasty, but had visa problems. The Gorillas are trying things out with Vivid and Spart. Roster changes have worked for a majority of teams, which was the exact ending storyline that we had to the end of the Seattle home series on Championship Sunday, right? The 4 teams that were there were all teams that recently had made a change, not necessarily with amateurs, but with player signings, with substitutions. If what this appears to be is what's happening, and this is in some way a cry for help on the side of the players who have made it very well known they have tried to make a change. The coach Nubsy has tried to make a move. I've got news for the Surge, right? I've got news for the management. It's not going to get any easier, right? It doesn't get easier from here. Because looking ahead, look at the Minnesota home series, because you'll be playing in that one as well. You've got the hardest pool that you've had all season. The Atlanta FaZe, the Dallas Empire, the Minnesota Rocker. Those are the teams that are going to be in your group. Teams you are combined 0-7 against on the season. Listen, this vehicle in the Surge isn't totaled, right? It's just a minor part that hasn't been fixed. A minor part that is causing all of the problems. I hope that whoever needed proof that this team is currently done. They got what they needed because you still have great pieces, right? I've said that since the very start of the season. No matter how much I've critiqued this team, you have got some wonderful pieces, some wonderful complementary pieces on this team. It is just about the finishing touches. I think the Surge players will try this, right? They're gonna continue to try, but this is where, as an organization, you have to be careful that you don't mentality wise let your team check out. Right? The last thing that you want, especially ahead of champs, which is now the main conversation right now, the prize pool is being announced. We're talking about the massive amount of money that's flowing in into the inaugural season of the franchise league. The last thing you want is for your franchise team to give up on themselves, right? For the players, the coaching staff to think we've hit a brick wall, right? The last thing you want is for them to give up, because players that you want to get for the future will remember this, and they won't have an interest in coming to Seattle, right? They're seeing the fact that Octane, one of the greatest AR players in Call of Duty esports history, one of the most mechanically gifted when it comes down to gun skill, one of the best players ever, is switching his role because why not, right? It's the next thing to do. Listen, players for the future are going to look at this. If changes aren't made, if the Surge continue to struggle for this season, maybe even leading into next season, this hurts the future of this franchise if moves are not made. For the simple fact that if these situations aren't made, right? For the simple situation, if you're looking at the future of this franchise, like I said, players are looking at this. This situation could happen all over again, which is why some players are going to be looking at this very, very closely. Young amateur players, even top professional players who thought about maybe being traded to this team or who are in those conversations. This is a team that is still so close to being a contender, but wasn't given the resources that they clearly have needed for a while.